Hello and welcome to another Clare Echo video special. Today we're reflecting back on Clare v Laois in the hurling qualifiers, and we're delighted to be joined once again by Niall O'Connor, former Clare minor hurling coach and member of the Clare minor or Clare senior hurling backroom team, and also Lauren Guilfoyle of the famed fecal hurling family, and also a chartered physiotherapist as well. So the AirPod crew, I think you're going to be christened. So you're very welcome to once again. And thanks for joining us, Niall. We're going to start off with yourself. Obviously, Clare started off with 4 changes to the Clare team. What were your thoughts on those changes made by Brian Lohan?
I suppose Paul came in, his name cornerback, but it early became obvious he was acting as sweeper, and I thought he did really well in that role until Davy McInerney obviously got sent off, and it obviously meant that we had to go back. Or we had no sweeper then. I still thought he did all right, to be fair. Definitely wasn't as influential in the game as he was when he was a sweeper. He's brilliant on the ball, Paul, so I thought that role really suited him. In terms of Aidan and Colin, I thought, especially Aidan, I think there's more in him. Aidan McCarthy, there's definitely more in Aidan. Might be something worth pushing him up the field and trying it. I think I remember he played against Cork last year and did well. I just didn't see the way he played this weekend in comparison to, say, how he played with Einik and Lamona in the championship this year. And obviously Shanahan did excellent up front. He really, really was brilliant. He held up the ball, he scored. But it'll be a big test for him next weekend, and that'll show exactly how he's hopefully an upward curve is continuing on for him,
And Lauren, I'm guessing there was great excitement amongst the Guilfoyles with Colin getting his championship debut.
Oh, absolutely. I think when the news came and the team was announced, my head just instantly went to, oh God, Nan, I won't be able to go now. I'm just going to have to listen to this at home, and that's going to be heart attack inducing at the best of times. But it was great to have Dad there at least, and I think we all were sending messages to congratulate him. So it was fantastic to have him on the team. I think, I don't know, the way he plays, the way he moves, he reminds me of how Dad actually used to play, and in the couple of videos that I've seen. It's fantastic to see Colin making the break here, absolutely.
Of course. And Lauren, just to stick with yourself, obviously Clare and Laois have met 5 times in the All-Ireland Championship, with Clare having an average winning margin 21 points in those games. Was there a stage on Saturday when you were watching the game that you felt Clare could actually lose?
I don't think it ever got to that point that I was overtly concerned. But I suppose, as you mentioned there, like in the past, and I'm pretty sure back in 2013 is even one perfect example of it. Like in the past, drawing Laois in a qualifier was always seen kind of as a way to reset, and a way to, I suppose, fix mistakes with little risk. And when it came to the game on Saturday, I suppose, it was a little bit too close for comfort, and a lot of the mistakes that we were making against Limerick weren't rectified. But I suppose this time around, Laois are a different outfit. Eddie Brennan has them, I suppose, has raised their game at numerous levels since maybe back 2013, 2014, 2015, when they were probably seen as pushovers and the easy draw. So I think we probably, like, when you look back at the game, I do think Laois were probably the more organised outfit, and the team that seemed to know exactly what they were doing, and they were trying to stick to that game plan. Clare did look to be a little less formatted, a little less structured, and I think, we definitely did get away somewhat lucky. We made a number of mistakes, or we didn't rectify mistakes that we were making against Limerick. Like when you look at the spread of scores and the reliance on Tony Kelly again for scores, 13 points again. We didn't seem to learn from that game or make progress in that game like we would have previously, I suppose. But no, I don't think I ever was overtly concerned with actually losing the match, which I suppose, again, testament to the standard of hurler that we have. With that being said, it was a little bit too close for comfort at the end.
Niall, for yourself, was there particular improvements? Were you happy with the performance from the Clare following on from the Limerick defeat?
Sorry, Paddy, was that to me or to Lauren? Sorry.
Where's away now?
Sorry. To follow on what I was going to say was that, like for the first 20-25 minutes to the sending off, I thought it was very evident there was improvement. And you know, there's no, okay, we beat Laois by a point, and there's been a bit of panic around the county, and people saying it wasn't good enough and this and that. But ultimately, up until the red card, I thought we were going really well. Ryan and Shane had 2 goal chances that would have really put us well up at half time and probably pulling away Paddy. So yeah, there were improvements. I would still say that I'm really, really worried about our back line, especially up the middle. You know, I thought, and that, and not really having a goal scoring threat. And so I'd like to see Connor really go back in centre back if possible, because I think it'll really shore up the middle against Wexford. And I'd love to see Aaron Cunningham come back in. Like I've heard he's been flying it in training, and he must be deeply frustrated at the moment, because I just don't see the scoring threat up front. Shane doesn't seem to be on form. That's not to say he won't kick on the next day. He did the same in 2018. He was sort of going through a patch like this and played actually Wexford and was outstanding. But I'd like to see Hammy come in beside him and Darren Shanahan, and maybe move Ryan out the field a bit or something like that, because Hammy definitely deserves a shot now at this stage, in my mind.
But I'd say, just on the Shane O'Donnell point, maybe it's not visible for people at home, but he is, I'd say, contributing maybe 70% of the scores that Tony Kelly is getting. They are coming from Shane O'Donnell assists. But who would you be looking to put in fullback then, Niall, if you were to put Connor Cleary?
To be honest, Paddy, we're on about putting in new blood, and it just doesn't seem to be there. So I'd be going back to, like I said, a tried and tested. Probably Jack. If Jack is fit, I'd like to see Jack at 3 and Jack at 3, Cleary at 6. And to be honest, I'd like to see David Fitz come back in the half back line as well, just to give. And maybe that's going against what people are saying, and that we're not bringing in new blood. But ultimately, Paddy, it's not there at the moment, you know, and that's something that needs addressing over the coming years. That's where I see it. 3, 6 and 5, I think that would shore up the back line, because it was a real concern the last day, you know.
And Lauren, just to turn to yourself, just given, I suppose, time, preparation and everything, but with your physiotherapist hat on, your advice to management be, with this particular championship, you know, are they allowed to do as much work as they ordinarily would do with such a short window of time?
Not when you have that 6 or 7 day turnaround. I think perhaps maybe the Tuesday night after a championship game, you can probably run the legs a little bit more. But when you're coming into Thursday and Friday again, it has to be a light session. You want guys to be light on their feet coming into the weekend. You also have the other side of things, where you might have guys that have picked up niggles at the weekend, and their involvement in this week can be extremely limited. Like, I've often had the discussion with management, where you may not have this guy Tuesday, you may not have him Thursday, but that's with the intention of you having him at the weekend. And that can always be a tough kind of conversation to have with management, because they want to see guys playing and training throughout the week in order to claim their place in the team. But I suppose, like, my opinion on that would be, well, if we train him Tuesday night, he's probably actually going to be worse, and those extra couple of hours will be hugely beneficial in getting inflammation to come back down, to settle the discomfort and pain that he's feeling. I'd rather him be in pain and in discomfort Saturday night following the qualifier, rather than Tuesday night in training in Clare Abbey. So these are all the different discussions that you need to have. I'm pretty sure Clare came through with no niggles at the weekend, but of course we don't have access to the camp to know for definite. But it is a pretty short turnaround. The trip home from Kilkenny was a long enough one, in comparison to maybe down the road from Thurles or the Gaelic grounds. And I suppose, if I don't know, have the fixtures been released yet for the weekend? If it's I think it's a Saturday fixture maybe. So it is the full week. Other teams might have only had the 5 or 6 days. But then you're looking at Wexford and Tipperary, who have had 2 full weeks now to clear up any niggles that they might have picked up, and they probably have one hard week of training under their belt, as well as being able to actually review that game and having time to actually review their first round clash, whereas Clare kind of just really have to park that now and push on ahead into next week from both a physio and a psychological perspective.
Yeah. And Niall, just I suppose one of the big talking points from the actual game was the sending off of Davy McInerney. It kind of did change the game in a way, but what were your thoughts on it? Was it deserved?
It was hard to see from. I did see it on the top of the camera angle for a split second, and it just it looked like a coming together, as I say, two lads hopping off each other, and it looked like the leash man went down after. But for me, there was two of them in it. How the ref could book the leash player and send off Davis seemed very harsh. Now, to be fair to the ref, I think it was out of his control. It was James Owens on the far side that had made the call, and ultimately when the linesman makes a call like that, there's very little the ref could do, you know, so it was disappointing from Davy. But I hope the Clare County Board really tackled that issue this week and really sorted out and appealed very hard on it, because from what Donal Logue was saying in the Sunday game last night, it looks like Clare have a case. So I hope the County Board have a case ready and go hard at that today and tomorrow.
Lauren, would you be hopeful the suspension will be overturned?
Well, I suppose it depends, doesn't it, on the video evidence. I didn't see it at the weekend. There was no replays on GAA Go, so I didn't have that luxury. I think, yeah, like as you said, James Owens was the person that made the call, and I was speaking to Dad after the game this weekend, and he was of the same opinion. So I suppose like it'll tell an awful lot what goes into the ref's report. Like if we don't have video evidence, I'm not sure how strong a case they do have if the call was made. I think Davy McInerney is a massive player, and we need his leadership, not to mind his skill set. Looking ahead to the weekend, so as Niall said there, I really hope the Clare County Board have gotten on that straight away. You would imagine that they would have been working on that Saturday evening, so hopefully that can be rectified ahead of the weekend, because he's a massive player. But I think, yeah, it really does depend on the video evidence. Again, as I was speaking to people that were at the game, and they were saying it pretty much was two guys in it. It was hard to figure out how Davy McInerney could have been isolated in that incident, and not to mind getting a red card for it. So yeah, I'm very hopeful that they will put a case in, but I suppose it's hard to know when there isn't some clear-cut video evidence that we've seen so far anyway.
And of course, the big game this weekend now sees Clare against Wexford. A mouth-watering tie already, people are calling it. Niall, your immediate thoughts on it?
Immediate thoughts are it's probably the best draw for both teams, Paddy. That's what I would be thinking. You know, Davy will be happy that it's Clare and it's not free-flowing Tipper Cork, especially after being Cork the weekend. And at the same token, Brian will be happy that it's Wexford, because a really, really hungry Tip team coming in after that defeat to Limerick would be a scary prospect with the backs performance last weekend. And also, I thought Cork were very impressive for 50, 60 minutes in Thurles Saturday evening. So I think it's a good draw for both teams. Saying that, I think Clare will go down and they'll have a crack off it. And let's not forget, last February or late January, went down to Wexford Park with 14 men for the best part of 45 minutes and came out with a win. One thing, Paddy, disappointing thing I just heard there this morning, the game's not actually on TV. It's on GAA Go. It's not on Sky. It's not on RTE, which is a pity for I suppose the older generation. You know, I know my auntie was up in Flagmount last weekend trying to sort out the game for my grandfather. You know, simple things like that for the older generation who mightn't have access to, or mightn't find it as easy to access GAA Go as us or you as kids.
Okay. Lauren, I suppose it was the fixture that was nearly written in the stars, really, the Clare Wexford Brian Lohan versus Davy Fitzgerald.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as Niall said there, I think both teams are going to be happy with that draw to have avoided Cork and Tipperary. Yeah, like Davy versus Brian Lohan, we've seen it down through the years. It has always shown or thrown up fireworks. Like I'm not convinced Davy Fitz will be emerging from the trees in Central Stadium or wherever this game might be played. But yeah, it's an exciting prospect. It's probably not at the same, or the challenge isn't going to be poised at the same level that maybe Tipperary might throw in Cork over the last couple of years. We just can't seem to get over them when the shackles are off, I suppose. So yeah, Wexford, I think, but there is obviously a huge sense of familiarity with the Wexford team, considering obviously the Clare contingent that are below there, but also that there has been some pretty much nip and tuck battles over the last couple of years. So Clare definitely aren't going to fear Wexford, and I think that's huge. There probably will be a sense of calmness around the camp this week and just focusing on themselves rather than having to focus on maybe the potency of the tip attack, let's say, as you mentioned there, Niall, with their concerns over the Clare defence. So it's absolutely the perfect challenge laying ahead. Yeah, I think Wexford are definitely hurting after their defeat 2 weekends ago, and I think like you often hear of managers pinning up on the wall like an article that has been written, but I think even if the camp in Wexford were to pin up Davy's own words after that defeat in Croke Park, but that's going to be enough motivation for the Wexford camp. I still see it as being a huge test for Clare, absolutely, but I think it's probably not at the same. We're not going to have the same level of fear as if it was Cork or Tipperary.
And one of the things that people are saying, Lauren, just that Clare are automatically going to lift their game for Wexford, with it being Wexford and with Davy Fitz. But as someone who's kind of studying psychology in UL and the lines that you're on, is there anything that backs that up, or what would your experience of that be, that a team will lift their game in that regard?
Well, I think it's probably not as a result of lifting their game, but I think as I mentioned there a second ago, it's familiarity. Like athletes are exposed to stressors all the time, be it venues, be it weather conditions, as we saw yesterday in Páraic McMahon. But I think just like a specific team is a stressor. It's a challenge that lays in their path, and if you have familiarity with the team, you already have very developed coping strategies of how you're actually going to deal with that team. And even when we look at Davy Fitzgerald, could even be classed as a stressor, like on the sideline, and to have experience with Davy Fitzgerald as their coach, be it with Clare or be it with LIT, and then obviously with Brendan Bugler and Shorty Bulfin below in Wexford as well. I think it's just that Clare do have the experience of playing against this management coaching ticket, or playing underneath them. So I think that's probably the factor that will allow Clare to kind of enter into this challenge, having already faced it numerous times before and have already kind of developed an understanding of how it works. There is probably a sense of unfamiliarity with the likes of Tipperary and Cork. We haven't had as many close battles with them. We don't have any experience of their coaching background or their coaching setup over the last couple of years. So I think there'll be an awful lot more unknowns in that particular contest would it occur. And yeah, I suppose like it's even something that I'm looking at the moment is different stressors that athletes have to come up against and how they cope with that, the resilience against that. And I think that Wexford are probably, it posed a challenge or a threat that Clare have come up against numerous times, and that's going to be the deciding factor, I suppose, when it comes to Clare's preparation ahead of this weekend. They're going to be looking back at previous challenges, previous games, or even looking kind of back to the time when Davy was in the Clare camp and how he went about different things. And I think that's going to be the different factor when it comes to Wexford.
When the teams last met in the championship, Niall, if I'm correct, you were on the sideline as part of the Clare backroom team in 2018. Clare, of course, got the win over Wexford in what turned out to be a memorable season. But to put you on the spot, Niall, can Clare win at the weekend?
It's not as easy as that now, Paddy, as you will know. But I listen. If Clare can, the one thing, if Clare can play the ball through lines, which they haven't done yet, and that's what happened down in Cork in 2018. Played through the ball through the line and worked it up the field, rather than say you get the ball and just come out and hit it up the field for the sake. You can't do that against this Wexford team. If Clare do that on Saturday, Wexford are going to win, and probably win comfortably. If Clare can change their tactics a small bit and play the ball through the line and not hit it up to, say, Kevin Foley or Paddy Foley sweeping or whoever it may be, and let Wexford build their attack, but then we have a chance. But I don't see that happening, and ultimately I think Wexford will win. But I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Clare can change it up a small bit ahead of the weekend. And hopefully this could be the spark that's needed in the 2020 season.
And Niall, Lauren touched on it there just about the injuries and not being able to do too much in the week championship, but just on the tactics, is it possible for Clare to really do a radical overhaul and try bring in a different type of game for this week?
I think any team that plays Wexford will always they'll change their game somewhat. It doesn't matter if you're Tip or you're Kilkenny or even Galway the last day, everyone will change. So yeah, I do see they're being able to change radically from the two games. You know, I firmly believe we're not going to beat Wexford the way we played against, or the style of play we played against Limerick, or the style of play we played against Laois. So unless it's changed in somewhat, we're not going to win, simple as.
Lauren, to leave the last word to yourself, what way do you see the game going between Clare and Wexford?
I don't think Clare have enough time to make the necessary changes that they need to ahead of this game. I think Wexford have had that time, and they have an experienced coaching ticket as well. That Clare probably, like, it's Brian Lohan's first season involved with an inter-county senior hurling team. I think it's been a strange season already, not to mind it being their debut season. So I do see Wexford coming through at the weekend. I think had Clare maybe stuck with a very similar 15 to the first day against Limerick, I think there'd be some sort of continuity and kind of ability to expand and develop. But I think considering the change in personnel from the first day to the second day, we're probably going to see somewhat of a change in personnel again, and then having to kind of change tactical awareness on top of that. I think it's a huge ask, and it's 6 days. They're obviously limited in terms of time together, video sessions, video analysis, being able to actually zone in on the mistakes of the last two games in preparation for the weekend ahead. So unfortunately, I don't see Clare coming away with a victory, and that's me with my hurling hat on. I suppose if I was to speak from the heart, I'd love to see a Clare victory. Of course, like when we look back to 2013, it was the game against Wexford that really sparked Clare's season to life. So I'd love to be wrong. It's one of those occasions where I'd love to be wrong, but I think there's just too much to adjust and to change ahead of the weekend, and it's just too tight of a turnaround.
Okay, thanks very much to Niall and to Lauren. And as Lauren said earlier about paper clippings being posted to dressing room doors, we might have a first for this game with a Zoom recording maybe being played with Lauren Tip and Wexford to get the win. So thanks very much again to Lauren and to Niall. We'll have more build up to the fixture in Thursday's Clare Echo. We'll also be looking at the Liberty Insurance Camogie quarter final where Clare take on Cork. So we'll have that and more on Thursday. So thanks very much and stay safe.